Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 35 of the build guide 2. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks so much for support on the industrial evolution stuff, right? Really fun time, although we did have some pillar police point out that maybe we need to not have these put into the water. Which I agree with now in hindsight, right? The iron would almost instantaneously rust in that setting, so we'll definitely change that as well, we will. And we've also changed the name, do some wonderful suggestions of Pear Tree Petroleum and AHA, due to last episode's partridgeisms. I do appreciate it, thank you for all the banter. It's great, it really is. Just noticed illegal assets. Please leave. Right, but what are we doing today? It's going to be Brooklyns and Queens time. I'm actually going to head into Google Earth a little bit today as well. We'll put some stuff on the screen of what we're looking at in Brooklyn, of course, to take inspiration from Brooklyns and Queens. But we're going to add this into this part of the downtown. This kind of window here is screaming out for a bit of high density residential, for which Brooklyns and Queens is perfect for it. But the hierarchy here is a little bit of a mess, so let's rip everything out, leave our game unpaused, and start playing with some Brooklyns and Queens residential in City Skylines, shall we? Cool, so everything is gone. Now let's take a little look at our road hierarchy again, because things have gone a little bit messy over here compared to the rest of the downtown. So we did have a bridge here, and I definitely want to keep that in, but we're going to sort of maintain that stretch down to the waterfront with this one right here, and then we also want to make sure that we keep our little bus ring road going around the full downtown, and we'll bring our bus lines down here today too. So I'd love the aesthetic of another suspension arch in this part of the city, so I'm thinking we're going to bring up a bridge like this, and then hopefully the vanilla game will be our friend today. Is that going to be alright? I think that's pretty perfect, isn't it? And we'll hook this in as well once we come to develop this side of the city. But for right now, that does give us another suspension arch in the foreground of the downtown, which is always a very appreciated aesthetic, isn't it? Cool, so pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and get that bus lane now, and this can hopefully just come straight down and under that bridge with a road guideline snap, hopefully. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. There we go. And then we'll just get a nice little happy curve, so that connects in as it should. And then this can continue this way. Let's go ahead and give this a nice healthy dose of forest brush. We will bring it back in, but we'll do our own custom one here. And then let's get a freeform tool and just sort of roughly eye up where we want this to go. Probably about there, I imagine. And then our main downtown road, which is a cycling lane, is going to flow this way. So where do we want to take this now? My thought is that it's going to kind of go through that little canyon there in the mountains to eventually link up with whatever lies out here, which is probably going to be a cargo harbour. So I think that at the minute is the most sensible suggestion. So let's go ahead and get a bit of a freeform tool here. We will line it up pretty much as we like. And then this can just hopefully again cross in one nice easy bridge if it behaves itself. Again, I don't think I hate that. That's going to be pretty nice, isn't it? And then we don't need this rail line here anymore either. We will extend the rail down here, but it's obviously a future project. And it looks like now everyone should actually hook in pretty sensibly into this one here. If not, we just need to slightly amend that curve so we look a little bit more like this. Fabulous. So another super key aesthetic of Brooklyns and Queens is elevated train lines. And we just so happen to have an elevated train line here that is actually dead. So let's just initially sketch out some frames of what I want to happen with the residential, which I think we're going to leave in basically 8 deep zoning squares. And then I want each block to essentially be 24 tiles long. So we're going to do 25 there. One short will be 24. And then we'll have that there. And then that process will repeat to hold all of our Brooklyns and Queens stuff, okay? So once we've got that in, we want to make sure that we can actually have the train lines coming through this area. So let's draw out a few more of these frames. See, that bridge just wants to go a little bit shorter, doesn't it? So we will actually maintain that for the sake of just keeping those nice even grid squares in. It'll make it a lot easier. Cool, so our residential is roughly going to sit within these spaces. So let's grab our train line now. Grab the regular one. We don't want the high-speed rail viaduct here. We very much want the aesthetic of these sort of older looking train infrastructure. So you're going to come through this way, I think. That'd be good to have them cross the road. So let's keep our grid snap on. And I think we'll just let this run straight through the Brooklyn suburb. Also as well, name suggestions down below for this particular suburb as well if you want to give it a name. Maybe something Brooklyn inspired might be cute. I will leave it up to the New York experts as to what that is. And then I think a little simple road guideline now just to help align our friends on the bridge. That should hopefully go a long way without it being too horrendous, hopefully. Let's bring our elevation back down to ground. Yeah, it's a fair bit taller, isn't it? Let's just go ahead and get this sorted out. There we go. So we've still got a slight little dip, but a little bit of redrawing in smaller segments will get it in for us, and that's going to give us some more really impressive transport infrastructure, isn't it? In the foreground of that downtown skyline again. You're not forgetting everything we've learned, even when we see the impact all these little layers have from an angle that's basically finished. So we want to make sure we're respecting all these vibes here as well today. Cool. So always happy to see that come in. And that does allow the train line to continue. And what we will do is just drop in a temporary train station out here so we can actually see that train line flow in today's episode. So another thing that's also been broken here is the tram system. So I'd like to reintroduce the tram depot itself back into the suburb. So we'll see how well this does. Let's also bring this 6 lane now down to meet with the bus highway, which will feed it into the airport interchange over this way. So we're again still maintaining those larger roads coming through. And then we've also got this road right here, which I'm going to use as a bit of a sort of guideline for the time being, I think. Oh, look at that. It's just off by 1. What a nightmare. It's okay though, it's nicely connecting to that side of the road. Yeah, so I mentioned that I want to have this tram depot factored in because it was originally here. And I think how I want to do that is I want to leave a zoning of 4 tiles between the arterial road here and where the tram depot is going to sit. So let's grab that tram depot now and we'll have it there. And then I want to draw in the line behind it. And then we can flip it around to sit somewhere like that. And that's going to connect in wonderfully well there, isn't it? Let's go ahead and get that tram road again. So many networks now in the vanilla game. It's really crazy just how many new roads we have to play with. It's such an appreciated free update, isn't it? And I believe this road here was actually maintaining the tram system, wasn't it? So that's fine, we'll let that happen. But what I do want to do to expand the tram depot next to the train station, because we've got quite an important sort of transport vibe going on here, haven't we? Is to actually bring in some sort of false tram maintenance depot yards. So we're going to do this by bringing in some tram only road, and then we're going to do little curves of 195 and then bring them back down into this one. And then I imagine we'll also do the same here as well. Just match those measurements each time. And I am actually going to bring the trams into this thing here, so it kind of looks like they have a little bit of maintenance going on. It's obviously purely aesthetic and vanilla. But if we have the trams come in, and then I think with a little bit of fencing around it, I think we actually might go for suburban. Oil would also work quite well, but I don't really want the sort of industrious look of oil, if you know what I mean. And then we'll just box this in with a bit of suburban fence, which hopefully should just run probably down to here, I guess. And then we'll detail this up in the time lapse, of course, but it will essentially give us like a little bit of sort of tram parking, I guess, maybe when they're not inside the depot, they're just out in a yard. And I think once this is surrounded by towers and we've got trams coming in and out of it, it should be quite a cool aesthetic. It looks a little bit rough and ready right now, but please do give it time. I promise you it will. It will come to fruition, right? You just got to bear with me on this one. And we do have 2 tram lines in this area, so we can actually get both trams to be worked on. So let's go ahead and get that one in there. And then this purple tram can come out this way. And we just want to make sure that they're not crossing over each other. Interesting, why would you take the tram road back out? That is very unusual. Well, we can fix that then by using the one-way tram-only roads. So they flow this way. That way the trams won't turn onto each other or try and take a stupid route out of town. So here will now fix, and then you can come up into here. There we go, that is what we want to happen. So now the trams will come back down, and I believe now we can play the game again, as everyone is going to be happy. I was thinking about changing this station out as well into something a little bit more Brooklyns and Queens, but the Japan stuff doesn't really suit it, and I kind of like this glass station too, so we'll keep it in next to the baseball stadium. But fabulous, right? So we'll see them move now and they'll actually stop in the yard like they're being worked on. And we'll get some other little props and stuff out here to help that vibe. But we can enjoy these trams spilling back out now. Let's have a little look at the lines actually. Is there anything... Yeah, they're fairly quiet. I wonder if we actually reduce you in size. May send a 72 capacity tram out on this one. Let's go for the 70 capacity tram. We'll send them all back into the depot. We'll see what we think. But anyway, they will of course slowly spin out. But let's turn our attention to the meat and potatoes of today's build, and this is Brooklyns and Queens. So of course we've set this up with a district specialization. So we can now zone up some very careful 4 deep units of this Brooklyns and Queens stuff is what we really want to do. So we'll start getting in different blocks of it. So I also want a high school here as well, kind of again looking at Google Earth for inspiration as to how all these areas are super tightly packed in. We've got tree-lined roads, sort of schools and services right in the middle of the neighborhood, right next to the housing. There really is very little breathing room around Brooklyn in terms of the space around the buildings. It's super high density. So that's what we want to try to replicate here. So let's give them a school. What we're doing for, we need a high school, and I think the regular vanilla high school is going to be sort of perfect, isn't it? Just because it's got that red brick on it, I think it's going to go quite nice with the Brooklyns and Queens stuff. And again, we're going to stick this with a content creator sports venue field from the wonderful Bad Peanut, which by the way, if you are missing it, links down below are available to Instant Gaming. So we can't get it in there, which is okay, I think. So we're just going to knock that back a little bit. And then we will place that park in directly behind our high school, which I'm happy with. And I think we can possibly maintain that road entrance here, could we? Now I'll tell you what we will do in that case then, rather than trying to bring the road back through it, is we will just allow a pedestrian pathway to link through behind the school here. I think that's going to be most appropriate, isn't it? And then it looks like there's a little spot for some choice vanilla car parking in there as well. Cool. So another big thing that we see around Brooklyn when we're looking on Google Earth is tree-lined streets. They are everywhere. So I think on the roads that are going to hold this new residential theme, we will actually run with the tree-lined roads instead. So I have actually tried live oaks on these roads before, which is what it looks like in Brooklyn. But they really clip into the buildings. It just looks too ridiculous in vanilla, so we really can't do that. So I think what we will do instead is actually use the new silver birch tree to line the roads, which goes really nicely with Brooklyns and Queens actually. It's pretty cool. And I guess we could also extend that aesthetic as well by using a tree-lined pathway. That would probably help too. How horrific is that going to look? Is there any bleeding onto the train line? I think a tolerable amount. I think the trains would soon trim those trees back, wouldn't they? So yeah, I think we can definitely get on board with that now. So we're starting to see it grow up. Let's go ahead and get some more of these in. Let's get our game on 3 speed. And of course, you know, let's not forget we are playing cities. We don't want to zone too much in one go, so we don't suffer any horrific death waves. But once the aesthetic is hopefully in, and we can get down to our street level, we can enjoy, for the first time in Vanilla City Skylines, the wonderful aesthetic of this medium density Brooklyns and Queens pack in the foreground of what is quite a New York-esque skyline, isn't it, in Orchid Bay? It's very tall, super tall towers. And it works. It's very nice, and I'm a huge fan of it, it has to be said. So we can enjoy Brooklyns and Queens in the foot of the towers. It's that aesthetic right there, isn't it? That's what you want. Super cool. Super cool. Cool, so let's go ahead and get some more of these tree-lined streets drawn out now. And again, we're going to have to be careful with what exactly is going on here, because we're starting to meet at the end of the road, so to speak, where... Oh, speaking of, our pink Jigglypuff bus is already coming down here, though. Can we... Where are you coming from? Where do you go? So you're doing some weird turnaround stuff there. Can we delete that stop? Okay, and then they're actually turning off here, aren't they, to go that way, which makes no sense at all because there's no stop there for them. So let's drag this line down here now. Yes, there we go. So please stop in front of that metro station. And then stop mirroring the other stop down this way. And then again, we'll bring that road down here now to hook into the bus lane, and then that will allow us to place that secondary stop for this area down this way. And that's kind of cute, to be honest. I think what we will actually do is make this a dedicated bus turnaround point. So we'll make this one way and that one too. And then hopefully now that bus will loop around it appropriately. We'll have it stop here. And then that can be actually quite a happy turnaround for that waterfront bus, which runs for ages now. It comes all the way through here, right past the stadiums and this suburb under another suspension bridge, and then down into this waterfront over here, where we can see them terminating their line. So really cool now, right? Remember when we started this like 20 episodes ago now, wasn't it? It's all finally paid off, having that bus priority system run all the way through the downtown. Probably as well now just realising another good spot for a ferry stop down here too. We'll definitely try and work that in. But wonderful, right? Look at this. Brooklyns and Queens is absolutely growing up. Tremendous things to see. Again, I want to leave it as dense as I can for as long as possible. So what we will do when we're bringing out these roads is actually allow these to hit the road guidelines of that bus lane first, and then we can connect them in a little bit more sensibly. So something like that. And then that allows us to have that high density pattern close right up until the edge of the road, which should look cool. And then same thing again over here. It looks like we've got a little bit more room to squeeze in. Oh, are you? Are you going to be alright? I think you're going to be a little too close, aren't you? Oh, yes, it's just occupied. What a nightmare. That's okay though, that's okay. So grade some roads. And what we will do here is just go for a slightly more shallow pattern. And then we'll have them there like that. And then we'll, I guess for the first time, see what happens when we do some 3 deep Brooklyns and Queens stuff. I'm not sure how that aesthetic's going to turn out, but we'll give it a try anyway. And of course, let's not forget to fully upgrade into our silver birch roads. And we should really begin to enjoy this now, I think. Let's get down onto one of the street levels that's got houses on both sides of it. Oh, yes, that view down to the tower. That's so good. With all the Brooklyns and Queens stuff here. I feel like I'm saying Brooklyns and Queens a lot today, but it is the theme of the episode, isn't it? So let's just deal with it. But wonderful, right? High school blends in really nicely with these new suburbs too, doesn't it? It really does. Let's create like a little bit of a community park somewhere in this area as well. I don't want it to be all of the residential. So let's have a look at our new parks. We've got some new stuff to play with, don't we? Which one is it I want? Oh, the small park. Yeah, I think tiny park is the one I want. So if we were to have a couple of tiny parks here, and we change their variants to a community garden, and then a gazebo, and we'll stick this with a vanilla basketball court, which just about fits and sits, which is perfect, isn't it? And then let's go for some 2 deep Brooklyns and Queens around here. I want to be quite careful with what is allowed to grow. And then I think just an embellishment of a little tree pattern here. Maybe a little sort of dusty path that links through. A couple more live oaks and whatnot, and that should just give us a little bit of park space within the suburb itself. That hopefully makes sense. Maybe there's a little communal growing garden here for people that live out the way and want to grow some fruit and veg. I think that's not horrific, is it? No, it's pretty cool. I also think as well, by the way, there's been an enormous update to the King Leno shopping malls pack. It now has a number of new unique buildings, and also the Africa in miniature pack has been really changed as well. There's some new unique ploppables in here. Wasn't aware of it when we did the everything new video, but go ahead and check it out. You'll find some new things in here now, including things like the contemporary department store from King Leno. But I do want the medium grocery store here, I think, to sit within the Brooklyns and Queens suburb. I think this will be quite nice. So let's find a position for it, trim back some roads, and we want to make sure that this road hierarchy continues to that next arterial, and then you can probably hook into there too. Let's maintain what is a very heavy grid structure in this part of the city. Fabulous. So let's have a look at that asset, the King Leno one. So I definitely love a supermarket in here for other people that live in the Brooklyns and Queens area. So we got fresh foods, marketplace, so we don't need this road here anymore. Actually, this would be a good place for some car parking, actually, maybe for the shopping centre. So if we were to have our road back there, which I realise is the one I just deleted, bear with me, we are figuring things out here. But I think if we have the medium grocery store there, that's what I want. I wanted that fresh foods logo and corner of the shop on the corner of the street. I think that's going to be quite tasteful, isn't it? I don't hate that. There is also the larger one, which might be more appropriate for downtown, I guess. He is significantly larger, though. Are we missing out on anything serious here? Do we want to maybe bring this in? Food Plus. It is a bigger asset, isn't it? And does kind of fit in with the medium density crawl here too, I suppose. Okay, I think we'll run with that then. And then we'll get some more car parking down for this as well. Let's have another one here, another car park next to the bridge, which should give us a very cool aesthetic again as well. Not something we're used to in vanilla. Bridges and car parks, although it does sink down a bit, you'll not have to park here. But that's not too bad, I don't think. Right. Really enjoying how this is settling in now. Super cool. Super cool. I did also mention as well during a live stream that I want this area over here to actually hold a sports venues building, and this will be a separate build from today. But we'll put it in now, so as a reminder that we don't fill this space. And that's going to be the addition of the community baseball complex just opposite of the stadium, so we can make a future expanded training arena for the Orchid Bagels that do play in the stadium here. Well, how about that now, right? We've got nice core medium density up to our towers that we've been crafting. And even from the stadium itself, the suburb's starting to look really cool. Really cool. I think the next thing certainly is getting a train line flowing, isn't it? So I'll go chuck a temporary station down here, and then we can see some trains moving about. So we've got the trains flowing now, but I feel like this particular model isn't very suited anymore. But we do have a new one, which is the Railroad of Japan commuter train. So I think we're actually going to switch the lines out for that train there. And hopefully that's going to look a little bit more Brooklyns and Queens. I'm also thinking here, just while we're talking about it, we're going to keep this network elevated as it crosses over this landmass and then across the bay again and into this space. So this is all, of course, temporary. Please ignore this for right now. But there we go. There's the Japanese commuter train, but I think that looks a little bit more like a New York train, doesn't it? I've obviously never been. I'm totally taking reference from TV here and pictures that you've seen. But I can get on board with that, I think. I definitely don't hate it. I really want to see one come the other way, which it is indeed now, so we'll see how this looks here. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I'm rather happy with that, that has to be said. Cool, so we've still got a big chunk of residential demand. Let's start getting in some more Brooklyns and Queens against the main street now. And then we'll start to really frame that train line with it too, which should be cool. Now, in New York, there is an abandoned train line that actually has been converted into an elevated walkway. We've had a few people actually shout this out over the series. I think it's definitely a project that would be better for modded, because we can use a elevated zoo path over the rail bridge supports to get that to happen. But I don't know, should we include this like alongside it as a homage to that New York walkway? So maybe, you know, this was once an old train line that came out of this station here, but it was decommissioned and turned into an elevated zoo path, which is possibly the most egg city planning there's ever been, isn't there? I'm not sure. I think I might, if we were to bring it down to ground level here, how horrific is that? Snap into the grid. I mean, it's fairly steep, but it works, doesn't it? I don't know, I think I'm going to leave it in, but I imagine that one being a divisive one. It is a homage to that. I'll leave a picture up during the edit. But yeah, it's an abandoned train line that's now been turned into a pedestrian walkway. Very cool. But I think a project better suited to modded when we have Move It and Anarchy, etc. But we'll leave it in for this one. I think we will. We'll leave it in. And then, do you want to come across here without causing me too many issues? Looks like you do. And then we can actually run that parallel with the station for a good chunk of it. Okay, I think we're going to leave it in. We're going to leave it in. It might be a little bit controversial, but we'll get it hooked in and functional and whatnot. Cool, and I think really now this space here, I definitely want to do some more transitional stuff here, which I think a tower is going to be probably best for, probably one of the smaller ones. Which that one is kind of a good shout for it, isn't it, behind the science centre. We could squeeze in another wide boy here too. We do actually still have the one Galveston tower, which is quite nice. This actually looks very like the old World Trade Centers, doesn't it? With the, I don't know what you would call that, I guess it's like slats at the bottom, isn't it? I'm not sure how you would describe it, but at the bottom of the tower, sort of reminiscent of the very, the old World Trade Centers, of course. So I also know there was a new plaza, I won't use Find It, I'll use the in-game one. That came with the Railroad of Japan, that's really nice. So if we search a plaza, it's this one right here. Yeah, we got a front of station plaza, so I think we might use a few of these around the base of the tower just to help ease it in a little bit. So let's throw in one of these new plazas right up against the road. We'll also do another one here. And it looks like we've got perfect path space there to detail that plaza up with. This will be one of the final contributions to the main skyline actually. Then we can run that across, and they're going to have to do some road voodoo here in order to get this to sit exactly how I want it. So if we go for that one, and then go back to skyscrapers, would you look at that? It's off by a tile, goodness gracious, give me move it. So there is a way I can do this. So if we come out of our grid snap and I manually align the road to purposely destroy the grid that's here, you see everything shatters, and then I can then use the unit building to position it basically a tile and a half either side, okay? So it's pretty cool. Can we actually lose that road connection? No, oh, that's such a shame, that would have been so cool if that just stayed where I wanted it to be. But it's no problem. What we will do is just bring it up here, I think, and then we'll use that as an excuse to blend out. And I know we have lost our pathway, but we'll bring it up just into, actually I think regular vanilla path might be better here now for that. Yep, and then probably an airport apron actually, because of course we don't need to arse about with poor man's service painter anymore. We can just do these spicy little boys. If we can find them, there we go. Can we do one large one? No, you're all occupied. You are occupied, aren't you? Yeah, their collision mesh is quite harsh sometimes. You can't always get them in where you want them to be. Yeah, so it'll collide with roads but not buildings, which is a bit of a shame. But it's okay, we can do Plaza D10 around the bottom of that. But I think that will take us up to our Brooklyns and Queens stuff there. And then we can enjoy the fruits of that as we extend the pattern further down the coastline. But now sitting a little bit further back, how nice. Really nice medium density solution, isn't it? As we crawl up to those towers. Tremendously happy with everyone. Any people using the buses? Let's have a little check on this bus line actually. How are you doing? Yeah, still plenty of free buses and none of the stops are horrendously busy. It's getting some nice use actually, this bus line now. Always happy to see the pink Jigglypuff bus. Wonderful. But otherwise guys, this feels like a good place for a detailing time-lapse. Let's go ahead and get this zoo path hooked in. Extend the Brooklyns and Queens pattern down here into this space. And then lots of part detailing. Also need to bring the keys. I think we're going to downgrade here into a smaller key a little bit further down. And then I will also remember a ferry stop down here as well, as we build up the Brooklyns and Queens area, which is already settling in so well into the downtown, isn't it? Really like it, especially from across our football fields here too. Baseball, sorry. That's it's a nice setting. But either way, let's do some detailing, and then we'll be right back. Okay guys, let's go have a detailing review, shall we? So we're going to go and explore one of my favourite builds in Orchid Bay. I didn't think I'd enjoy the Brooklyns and Queens stuff as much as I have, but look at this aesthetic, right? That flat expanse of roofs and medium density and the crawl up to the stadium and then the skyline, absolutely tremendous. I cannot suggest going and picking up Brooklyns and Queens if you haven't already. I'm going to be enjoying this a lot. But either way, we'll start with some street detailing. We've also brought in the metro line too as well, so let me quickly show this. Let's bring on our public transport overlay. So this metro now runs to a couple of places in the suburb, and then back to this empty metro line that you might remember we had coming out of the transport hub. So there are now a few metro people waiting to come and take that connection into the underground line, which is fun. But either way, we'll start with some little inner city street detailing. So we've used one of the new tiny parks that has the playground on it and then expanded that out with some of the vanilla park props, and then also brought in the new Japanese railroad fence, which is perfect for a little park area, right? Really nice fence, that one, so we'll definitely be using that in the future. And then just filled in a lot of these little awkward green spaces with props and trees and whatnot. And then this also happens down here again as well, using another one of those tiny parks, this time the outdoor gym variant, which this guy is burning off some calories there, with a little food truck next door as well. And just look at the height of the density and just the little peek through to the towers. It's making me so happy. It's really cool. Big fan of this. Zoned up a little bit more commercial in here as well. We're trying to wait for appropriate red brick themed buildings to come in to match the area here. Which isn't too bad thanks to the University City stuff. And then our bus lane continues down into more little developed greenbelt spaces. A couple of benches over here sat overlooking the river, which will be really cool one day once there's something on the other side of it at least. And a really cool view as well into downtown from this park, right? A little bit more commercial in this space next to a vanilla fire station, which again I thought was very appropriate for Brooklyns and Queens, even though it's the European one, but it's red brick, which is very much the theme of the build. And then more red brick here. We did actually have the wine and liquor abandoned, but kind of thought that was cool, so we're going to leave the abandoned commercial unit in here on the waterfront. And then a bit more sporadic housing. Some more of that Brooklyns and Queens residential to frame the bridge, which has now been hooked in. But please do expect these networks here to change as, of course, we build in this area. I think what is going to happen, we're actually going to keep both of these suspension bridges elevated across this landmass. I think that's going to give us a really cool network aesthetic, but we'll probably come out here next episode, I think, and start developing some things here, if not finishing the downtown in this quarter. But yeah, we'll come up with something for it anyway. And then we're turning back over here. This food mart now sits in really nicely. One of the new parks has a pizza place skin, which I thought was super appropriate for a Brooklyns and Queens inspired neighborhood. So we now have a pizza place in here opposite the food market from King Leno. Dropped in a bit of fencing behind this with some of the very limited industrial props the vanilla game gets. So we've got some plazas and promenade recycling bins at the back of the supermarket with an airport apron so we get that concrete filler, and then a bit of a fence just to mark out that delivery area, which sits just adjacent to our ferry stop, which is getting a little bit of use now. See a couple of people moving up and down the river on the ferries, which is fun. And then we come to some more greenbelt designs. Benches, pergolas, trees and whatnot as we arrive down this end before we bleed into some nice open green space by the river where there's people using the keys to get back and forth now, which is super satisfying, even walking that far down too, which is great to see. So love that. Another park, this commercial, well, Tower Plaza has had its path upgraded and some trees placed alongside it, which is a nice introduction into the main skyline now, isn't it? I'm pretty happy with that. And then a little bit of high density commercial here as well to help blend back into the downtown area, of course. And then we have a bit of generic zoned industry here because I wanted like a little tool shed essentially for this tram depot. Dropped in 2 airport aprons with a bit of overgrowth just to help detail this space, and a little bit of that oil fencing. So I think we've kind of pulled off the sort of tram maintenance yard aesthetic here coming out of the tram depot. Gives it a bit more purpose and also adds a bit more personality into the suburb as well, I think, doesn't it? Really nice. Trains super busy. This station's just getting loads of people a week, and there are a few people indeed taking the old converted rail line out of town now as well, which is cool. We're actually getting people using this elevated zoo path as a homage to that pedestrian way that actually sits in New York City. Some carefully chosen assets from the high density commercial pool here as well. Again, looking for older style buildings in red brick, and then this tower growing up just happened to be a happy accident, and I couldn't really refuse that little pop of height that appears in the suburb, so I'm going to keep that tower in. And then there's also another metro stop here just next to that commercial that takes people back to the transport hub. So they've got a lot of public transport connections. There's buses, train and metro, and look at that. That's such a cool aesthetic, isn't it? Really great inspiration to be had, and of course these new residential assets really do make it. But definitely one of my favourite areas of Orchid Bay that we've done today. Really fell in love with the Brooklyns and Queens stuff. And it's nice to see a big spike of actual downtown population in, because a lot of the downtown, to be fair, is unique buildings and commercial. There's not actually that many people that live here. But there are now, thanks to these guys, and we'll see them using all the networks and public transport. Let me know what you thought of this. Are you enjoying Brooklyns and Queens? I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. Please do enjoy your cinematics, but I'll show up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.